This video is sponsored by you. Links to support the channel are in the description. Hello there, Arknights most hated YouTuber here. Once again triggering the Arknights tryhards by pulling them, kicking and screaming back to reality and showing them the perspective of the average player. But I forgive them for not liking me, since according to an anonymous gun, tryhards are a minority with severe brain damage. An important specification for this video is that the operators inside the archetypes don't matter at all. We're gonna be looking at the archetype itself and what it implies. So, for example, instructor guards are notoriously shit operators, about as non-functional as woofering waves at launch.
You will not escape.
What a shame I can't stay and play with you a bit longer. Till we meet again, dear friends.
You're not going anywhere.
The only half-decent one is Pallas. However, Instructor as an archetype itself isn't bad. All Instructor means is that they can hit enemies from a distance and gain more damage when attacking enemies not blocked by them. More range and increased damage aren't bad effects. Instructor is a purely positive archetype. It's just that the operators within it all happened to absolutely squander this potential. But honestly, I don't know why I even have rule segments anymore, because I know some dumb asshole in the comments is gonna be like, what the Sigma SUPAH? Why are hunters here when Ray proved that they can work anyway? With this established, let's get into it. It was actually pretty difficult to select 10 inherently bad archetypes. Despite how plentiful bad operators are, damn near the entire 5-star rarity, inherently bad archetypes are hard to come by. Dreadnought isn't that bad. Their one stipulation is just block 1, that's it, they're just guards that block uno. It's as flavorless as a Burger King meal, and the actual effect isn't quite neutral but more leaning toward being bad. But I'd describe it more as underwhelming. Dreadnoughts are just here out of contractual obligation to have a top 10 instead of a top 9. If you were expecting a Skadi rant, I am sorry, I wanted to do it too. But keep this placement in mind. Keep Dreadnoughts somewhere within your smooth brain. They are a special tool that will help us later. Foreshadowing is a narrative device in which a Geek is the archetype that Ak and Spuria belong to. You may think the gimmick is harming your other operators in some way to buff them, but actually all the archetype is that the operators in this class lose HP over time. That's it, just a straight and pretty bad debuff. While Ak has ways to sustain himself, Spuria does not. Spuria is the top 3 worst operators in the game for her own reasons, but with her you can really see just how bad the archetype itself is, because she doesn't have any ways to natively sustain itself. Geeks, by nature, need a healer mommy to babysit them. Personally, I recommend Susurro. Just like in the lore, Ifrit as an operator was a freak accident that is a mockery to the work of God. It is truly a masterclass in ludonarrative synchronicity. You did it again, Lowlight. Bravo! Now that Colosseum and Aroma are out, people can actually see Ifrit is broken because she is Ifrit, not because of the Blastcaster archetype. Let me tell you, there's a vast range of reasons as to why Aroma and Colosseum are not God's creations, and their archetype is very much one of them. First, the range is awful. Unless you're Ifrit, which is good even with just one tile, a Blastcaster can only really shine when there is a perfectly straight supermarket aisle in the stage. It also doesn't help they attack once every 3 seconds. They stop and reevaluate their life choices in between every attack. You'd think for such a low attack speed they'd have a great attack stat. But no they don't. A maxed Aroma has around the same attack as Melanta actually. And Besieger snipers have a lower attack interval and much better attack stats. So in essence, you get a super slow and mediocre arts damage on a really clunky range, and that costs way too much DP. Hookmasters are here for a simple reason. They pull, and unless you're Gladiia brainwashing people into thinking she's meta by having her tits out like a hypnotic pendulum, that's the only thing they do. They pull, and when the f*** are you ever gonna need pulling outside of Annihilation 2? At least Blastcasters do something actively useful all the time. They do it like shit, but it's something. Hookmasters don't get this luxury. Unfortunately, the one thing they do is only useful in one stage every 10,000. In my Discord server, which you should join by the way, link in the description and pinned comment, PRTS room is the Arknights chat, there is one guy who is a diehard Carnelian simp, and this is like the third f***ing time I put her in one of these top 10 worst videos, and for that I apologize. However, I will still proceed to shit on her. As an archetype, Phalanx casters are literally do nothing half the time. While they do nothing, they have increased defense and resistance. You know, for all the 0 times you need a tank in a high tile. Okay, to be fair, sometimes you might actually need a high tile tank, like against Patriot. But this is inherently just worse than a ground tank, by virtue that most enemies are on the ground, and a lot of them don't even have ranged attacks to hit the high tile tank. I suppose they work against aerial enemies, but ground tanks are also good at soaking up damage from aerial enemies. So they do nothing half the time while serving a role that is not useful at all. So you may be wondering, why aren't Liberator guards here too? They essentially are melee phalanx casters. Well, it's because while they do nothing, Liberators actually help themselves by slowly increasing their attack, essentially guaranteeing there will be a payoff for the wait time. Which, let me tell you, it's not a guarantee. Outside of Lin, every other Phalanx caster does not have a worthwhile payoff for waiting 3 workdays to let them charge. Imagine AoE healers, but worse in essentially every way. That's chain healers. They heal 3 targets just like AoE healers, but each progressive target receives less healing. The advantage of chain casters is that they can do a go-go gadget extendo arm and reach operators outside of their range by bouncing off others. But this will only really work if your operators are in an orderly conga line. This is also stage dependent to an extent, unlike AoE healers. Just use AoE medics. Wake up, babe, I am explaining why fighters are inherently bad for like the 5th time on this channel, and the 2nd time in a row. So, to make it a little bit more fun, I'll try to speedrun it this time. Fighters are gimped by the defense calculation. It's a subtraction between attack and defense, so you want one big attack and not many little attacks, because you want the defense calculation to happen as little as possible. Time! There you go, that was an easy world record, easiest W of my life. But yeah, their gimmick is doing a bunch of little hits, but really fast, which in any other game would be perfectly fine. But since the developers couldn't code their way out of a f***ed-up 333 base, they lazed out and made the damage calculation just a simple 2nd grade subtraction, which makes them worse by virtue of how the laws of reality within the bounds of this game work. If you are Mountain, you get to ignore all of this. But Mountain is Mountain. We are talking about shitters like Bee Hunter and Jackie here. Another archetype that is just straight up a debuff. You know how some skills work off of an ammo system? Hunters are bound by it all the time, and when they run out of ammo, they reload 1 bullet and then fire again, rather than the whole mag. Again, ignoring some effects that some operator might have to take advantage of this somehow, this is just horrible. Essentially, any operator from this archetype that isn't Ray is the bearer of the curse. The curse of not being able to do shit the instant they run out of ammo. I don't think I even really need to explain this. It's self-evidently a dog water. Imagine if in an FPS game you could only reload 1 bullet at a time. That's the Hunter archetype. They get 8 shots of doing something before being banished to the shadow realm of perpetual reloading. When you clicked on this video, you knew Crushers would be here. They are the one most notoriously shit archetype in the community. Everyone collectively clenched their assholes when they saw that Ulpianus was a Crusher. And that ass remained clenched until his talent 1 was revealed. And let me tell you, thank God Ulpianus has that talent, otherwise he'd teleport on the enemies with a skill tree and then die immediately by virtue of being a Crusher and thus abandoned by God. But why is that? Well, you see, their gimmick is having 0 defense. Yeah, that's it. In theory, they are supposed to be the glass cannons of this game, but they don't really have the cannon. They are just glass. While their attack is high, their attack speed is low, so their DPS isn't that much better at all compared to other archetypes. Their gimmick is being as fragile as the ego of the average white man on Twitter, and getting nothing back in return. They also have really high HP, which sounds good on paper, but all it does is make them difficult to heal, as your healer's heals will be a mere drop of sand within the endless abyss of their HP bar, while the enemies still get to wail on them. Okay, hold on. If the one worst archetype isn't fighters, isn't hunters, and it's not even crushers, what the hell is it? Well, the thing is that every archetype in this list has been proven that you can make it work. Every archetype here has some operator within it that is amazing or at least decent. In order: Nearl Altar, Ak, Ifrit, Gladiia, Lin, Mountain, Ray, and Hoederer, and possibly Ulpianus. The exception is Paprika, the only chain healer so far, but I can easily envision a world where chain healers can be made to work. Just slap Touch's talent on them and suddenly they're the best f***ing operator in the game. The archetype in first place, I genuinely think you can't fix it. It's so fundamentally broken that I don't think even slapping an incredibly good skill on it, like how Ray and Mountain did it, will ever fix them. Of course, it's Remember Dreadnoughts? I told you they'd come back up. Take Dreadnoughts. Now almost double their DP cost, make them attack slightly slower, and make it so they only gain SP when blocking. That is Duelist Defenders. I genuinely cannot explain how they are so bad. I cannot decipher what exactly they were cooking when they came up with this idea. Let's go in order, because otherwise I'm gonna get lost in the sauce here. If you stare into the Unecti's feet too long, they start staring back. First, why the f*** is their DP cost so high? I swear to God, you don't get anything to balance out the DP cost. You'd think maybe they'd have a much higher attack stat than Dreadnoughts. But no, Skadi and Nearl Altar have better stats than the Unectis. What they actually get is a better defense, which is not that good for almost doubling their DP cost. But they can't be tanks anyway because they block one. They can't be a frontliner like other defenders. And when you need to block to make SP, blocking one is awful. Block one is pretty bad on its own already, and then you add this stipulation on top just to add insult to injury. What's also awful if you need to block to make SP is an attack stat this high. Yes, I just said it's lower than Dreadnoughts, but it's still too high for what duelists want. What's going to happen thanks to this attack stat is that whatever they block will be turned into minced meat before they get to generate any worthwhile SP, and some ranged enemies won't even get blocked at all. If you don't think this is an issue, keep in mind that to fix this, Aurora literally doesn't do anything until her SP bar charges to a certain point. It's such a hindrance to duelists that either you have to play them all weird champ pointing them backwards, or you don't play them without the modules making them get SP passively. You might say that they need the high attack stat because they are boss killers, but no, you f***ing idiot, because they are not boss killing with the stats, they are boss killing with the skills. So, lower the attack stat and increase the attack gain on the skills. And about skills, you wanna know how I know that even giving them extremely strong skills won't fix them? Because Eunectes has an incredibly strong skill, and it doesn't do anything for her. She's still way too clunky to be worthwhile. And the thing is, there is no real solution to this. On one hand, you want something to balance out the outrageous DP cost, so you'd want high attack to compensate. But on the other hand, you really don't want high attack because of how duelists work. To solve this conundrum, the archetype lands right in the middle and gets the worst of both worlds. Not enough attack to make up for the DP cost, but too much attack that charging SP with them becomes a nightmare. I genuinely don't know how you fix this archetype, because giving them OP skills clearly isn't enough. Do you have any ideas? I'm honestly just stumped here. I'm stun-locked looking at this shit. And that's all. Max out your Gummy. Bye. Hi, welcome to the end of the video. This is where the video ends. Thank you for watching, and to all the channel members and Patreons on screen now. In particular, Come to Brazil, Zeferini X, The Crazy Lord, New Takoyaki, Noobpo, Lord Vakio, Good Old Leon, Maxio Says, and Kromshan but JJF. That's all. Now I will go to bed after a long day of continuing the cycle.
The other over and over again, I was a new pendulum. I left that can't reach like that through the wall, but I can't find you with access to the back of my eyelids.